Hey everyone, it's Eva here from PotatoLifeGaming, and I have Daniel controlling my Frost Mage while he records because we all know how my Mac sucks for stuff like this. We recently made a Frost Mage skill build video where we mentioned certain imprints here and there, and I figured an imprint showcase video would be a great way to follow up. If you do want to see the skill build, we will link it in the description box below as well as at the end of the video. Just like the other imprint videos that we've made for Doomblade and Cat's Paw, I've also removed the minor imprints for simplicity, so I guess let's just start off with the top row and then go down. The first imprint set is the Sub-Zero set. The translations are pretty vague and can be confusing, but I'll try my best to clarify. The 1 out of 3 set creates 5 additional frosted stacks on a target. This is hard to test the damage over time skills, but the skills Ice Shards, Frost Blast, Ice Needle, and Frostbolt give the same number of frosted stacks with or without the imprint. However, Ice Eruption is affected and gives 5 more. If you watch the buffs at the top, Ice Eruption gives 15 frosted stacks instead of the usual 10 stacks unimprinted. Usually when you mouse over imprints it tells you what skill prompts it if there is one, but for Frost Mage it doesn't clarify, but from my testing it definitely does not apply to all skills. Next up is the 2 out of 3 set bonus where BFG's range becomes substantially wider. I was actually surprised at the range. If you go into imprint runs, you could actually wipe out most mobs from where you spawned in with it. This is what the imprinted BFG looks like, and as you can tell, it's quite the AoE in a fan shape. This is what it looks like unimprinted.
Tell me if this hurts.
Even with the cold-blooded buff, it stays the same as a fan shape and does not become the usual 3-beam BFG that it becomes unimprinted. This is what it looks like normally.
Now, tell me.
And then the 3 out of 3 set bonus is that it reduces the number of frosted stacks needed to freeze an enemy. And this is kind of hard to test as well, but I don't find that there is a noticeable difference with this after testing the 1 out of 3 bonus. I'm not sure if this applies to a specific skill, but if it were to apply to all skills, that would mean my 2 Ice Shards should freeze the enemy without frostbite stacks, but it does not. One attack that I do know it applies to though is Ice Eruption. With 1 frostbite stack you need 25 frosted stacks to freeze without imprint. However, because of this 3 out of 3 set bonus, you'd only need 20 to freeze. Ice Eruption gives 10 frosted stacks normally, but with the 1 out of 3 set it gives 15 as we've established. So as you can see from the example, if you take a look at the buffs, 1 frostbite stack with 5 frosted stacks, Ice Eruption freezes the enemy because 15 plus 5 is 20. Which is how many frosted stacks you need to freeze an enemy with 1 frostbite stack. Without any imprints, you'd need 15 additional frosted stacks instead of just 5 to freeze an enemy with Ice Eruption. I don't really use this imprint much because it's easy to get frosted stacks quickly with all of Frost Mage's damage over time skills and fillers, so having the full set and needing 5 to 10 less frosted stacks for Ice Eruption isn't significant to me. The only fun part about this is just the BFG part in my opinion. If you do really like the BFG change, you can also consider mix and matching imprints. Alright, so the next imprint set is the Stormfront set. If you watched my skill build video, this is the primary set that I use and what I customized my build for. The 1 out of 3 set changes Hailstorm to be a tracking damage over time attack. If you misplace the circle, it will track to where the enemy is, or if the enemy moves, it will slowly move with the enemy. This is what Hailstorm looks like unimprinted. And this is what Hailstorm looks like imprinted. This is what it looks like when it's tracking to an enemy, and it's especially nice in Titan when you have to kill the mobs at the end. You can just plop the skill down literally wherever, and it will find something to kill while you pick up the shells for the cannons. Also, because of the short cooldown on the skill, if you use it right after the cooldown, you can actually have 2 hailstorms tracking at the same time on an enemy or multiple enemies. Next up is the 2 out of 3 set bonus that lets you choose where you want to place Chillblains. It will place a circle on you and a circle where you choose to put it down. This is what Chillblains looks like normally unimprinted. When imprinted, you can also no longer click the skill again to push back enemies, it's just a single cast. As for damage, each circle is its own regular damage, but halved. It's basically put the two parts or clicks of Chillblains into one, so it's recommended that you cast it on top of yourself or close so you get the damage from both circles. We did some testing for you guys to see the damage reports of Chillblains normally and Chillblains with both circles on an enemy. As you can see from toggling back and forth, comparing the two damage reports, the damage is more or less the same. The slight variance is due to accuracy taking its effect. So if two circles equals the same amount of damage as Chillblains unimprinted, each imprinted circle is the damage halved. Alright, so let's move on to the 3 out of 3 imprint set bonus. As it says, it will allow you to choose where Snowpocalypse will go, has a slight sucking action, and the duration increases by 2.5 seconds. Also, it says it will cast faster if affected by another imprint. I'm not sure what that's referring to because no other imprints affect cast speed unless it's referring to the minor cooldown imprints and being able to cast it sooner. This is how Snowpocalypse looks like and is casted without the imprint, so normally. It normally just tracks to the closest mob. And then this is what it looks like when you can control where you want it to go, imprinted. It's nice to be able to control where it goes because if you're fighting someone who has iframes before being aggroed, for example in arena, it won't just shoot to the wall through the opponent when you're trying to set up your burst moves. And also, for some reason, it no longer gives chilled buffs anymore when you imprint it. I'm not sure why it does that, but it's not really important because it only gives one unimprinted anyways. I personally really like this imprint because it emphasizes and improves some of the strongest Frost Mage moves, and it also gives more control to the attacks. But enough about that, let's just move on to the third set, which is the Glaciation imprint set. Also for this imprint set specifically, I've actually reset my skills and then I've maxed the Awakening and the skill points inside those skills just so that I can show you guys the actual difference between them. I haven't used this one much, but it's really fun to play with because of how different the attacks become. I like to call this the Machine Gun Frost Mage imprint. I'd say this is good for people who like to play ranged and far away. Alright, so the 1 out of 3 set makes Ice Eruption create a giant ice sculpture that attacks nearby enemies. And I have to say, this was a letdown when I got it because I had much higher expectations when I read that it attacks nearby enemies. I thought it'd turn into a double me like Shadow Mage's ult, but it's literally just a giant ice block. This is what Ice Eruption looks like normally unimprinted. If you put skills into the Awakening, which you should if you're using this imprint, the ice block becomes visually larger. Right now I have it maxed, so it's as big as it gets. I also find the attacking nearby enemies part is more of a damage over time thing that occurs to enemies that are trapped or touching the ice sculpture. It does guarantee a freeze though, regardless of how many frostbite stacks are applied and how many frosted stacks are needed. It won't be the usual long freeze, but at least it will freeze for a brief moment for you to catch your breath if needed. The 2 out of 3 imprint set makes ice shards a floating moat that shoots out tiny shards in all directions, and I actually like how this looks, it's pretty cool. This is what ice shards looks like normally, unimprinted. And this is what ice shards looks like imprinted. With this imprint set, you can actually no longer double tap the move anymore. For 2 attacks, it's just simply 1 now. I find that this works and looks very similar to Vixie's pet effect, as you can see. And if that looks familiar, Vixie's effect is actually from the same thing as the one in Inner Sanctum. And moving on, the 3 out of 3 imprint set bonus is my favorite change in skills. It gives the Ice Needle 5 charges that you can use all at once and or save the charges if you'd like. This is what Ice Needle looks like unimprinted, uncharged, and then charged. This is how Ice Needle looks like awakened, imprinted, and uncharged. And this is with the charged shots. I think you can clearly tell why I call this the machine gun imprint. Also, I found that this is worth mentioning, but when you tap it to shoot out 3 bullets, even if you landed all 3 bullets, it only do 3/4 of the damage of a charged hit. So, I mean, it looks funny and cool, but it's not as strong as when you hold down the skill. Alright, and that's all for this Frost Mage imprint showcase. I really like how much it changed Frost Mage's skills. It's really fun to play with and to see all the attacks. Hopefully you found this helpful to decide which imprint set you want to go for when farming for it. Let me know in the comments below which imprint set is your favorite, and we'll see you all later. Bye!